In this video, we're going to find out all about the brand new ways we can both clone and grow our very own spaceships. These aren't going to quite be the bioships that your people live inside of, but for now they're the closest we are going to get in Stellaris. I also do have a note on bioships. Actually, let's just dive straight into that for all of our bioship related goodness. I'm going to do something a little odd. I'm going to start not at the beginning, but at the end of this dev diary, because that has a really juicy little tidbit. It's only a couple of sentences long, but it basically confirms what was written in the thumbnail, that we are getting full and proper bioships. However, we're not getting them right now. A note on Space Fauna and bioships. While this Space Fauna breeding system scratches a lot of the bioship itch, the developers don't consider them exactly the same systems. These are more like vicious mutated pets than meat ships you fly around in. Expect that one day in the future we'll explore that idea more. I think this basically then confirms that we are going to be getting at some point a new DLC which is going to focus on creating our own bioships. Given that we've recently seen a full overhaul to machine empires and the synthetic and cybernetic ascension paths, it would make sense that this new bioship system will also be coming alongside a rework to the genetic ascension path, which is currently absolutely the weakest of the 4 ascension paths if you're a regular biological or a hive mind. And honestly, I think that is the most exciting part of this dev diary. Now let's look at the rest of it and look at what we're going to be getting in terms of these not quite bioships, these vicious mutated pets. What follows now is a treatise on the care and feeding of Tianki, alongside other space fauna. When we build the Grand Archive, we'll also get access to the Vivarium. The Vivarium is essentially a space fauna breeding and observation tank. You can access it under discoveries as soon as your Vivarium capacity is above 0 or the gravity snares technology has been researched. The Hatchery module is the space fauna equivalent of shipyards and can only be built on a station that has no normal shipyards. It's unlocked by the artificial breeding technology. You can also increase your capacity by building Vivarium tanks. These increase the growth rate of your docked fauna and are unlocked by the gravity snares technology. Building a Grand Archive will give you the biggest boost to Vivarium capacity. Sorry, so I wasn't quite right there. You do actually have access to the Vivarium before building the Grand Archive, but the Grand Archive is the best way to boost that number up. So we have the new modules here for the spaceship, the hatchery in the middle and the Vivarium tank on the right. Hatcheries incubate space fauna genetic material that we have collected and produce viable new specimens under our control. We can produce more powerful creatures by collecting more advanced genetic samples with our gravity snare. So if we go out and catch them all, we can make better stuff. This will give us an empire-wide increase to Vivarium capacity of +5 and unlock the hatchery cloning capacity. I suspect that is going to be similar to our shipyard basically, but for these bioships that we're going to produce. Sorry, not quite bio pets, vicious bio pets we're going to be producing. Then the tank gives us a space fauna ship growth rate modifier of +10%. I think we'll find out what that means a little later, but for now I'm not sure. Maybe that means we grow new spaceships faster, and we'll get +10 to our max capacity in the Vivarium. Here we can see the Vivarium. At the moment there is a capacity of 5, but we have nothing in it. We need to capture space fauna with a gravity snare in order to store them here. It's not interesting, and yeah, at the moment it can't fit much. Building a Grand Archive and some extra tanks is going to massively increase that capacity according to the dev diary. Let's now look at our Pokeballs. Capturing space fauna. The gravity snare technology lets your science ships attempt to capture wild space fauna. Here we have an event that's fired up, gravity snares. Following the recent discovery of gravity snares, Grapak's science ships are now able to launch gravity snares. These non-lethal projectiles can safely capture and transport space fauna to our Vivarium, where they can continue to reproduce new specimens of their kind. Culling and dissecting these creatures will allow for the harvesting of their genetic material for cloning purposes as well as other resources. Kind of sounds like space whaling as well. Yeah. So culling and dissecting apparently also happens in the vivarium. You can launch a gravity snare from an adjacent system to attempt to capture wild space fauna that are peacefully, actually, to be honest, crystalline entities are what we're currently seeing apparently in that image, and there's nothing peaceful about them. Whilst the devs bet that they'd make a good addition to our fleet, they should find some friends, so let's go look for Tiyanki instead. First, we need to know the basics about the creature before being able to tune the gravity snare appropriately, so we have to finish the first contact process before we can capture them. There is a cost and a cooldown to capture attempts, and as you unlock various technologies, the capture chance and the number that you can capture at once will increase. So basically we'll get great balls, ultra balls, that kind of thing. Other technologies like cloaking and jump drives will also improve your gravity snares. Cloaking increases your capture rate, and jump drives let them instantly send your new friend to the vivarium instead of taking a little while to transfer. Here we can see in the image, launching a gravity snare costs some energy and a small number of alloys. We have a chance of success of 60% here from our leader level, and containment protocols giving us plus 20%. I'm sure we'll find out what that is later. I think kind of more importantly here, we can automate the process of capturing space fauna. Yes, even the capturing of space fauna is not safe from the relentless progress of AI. Let's automate the damn thing. So the gravity snare will actually fly into the adjacent system and attempt to capture the target. Generally it has good ecological sense and will attempt to capture random breeding age adults if there are any in the target group. But I assume if you only find kids, it's gonna go and steal some children. Oh good lord. Here we can see what happens if we are successful. This is our very first capture, I believe. With our first successful capture of wild space fauna in Romsir, we believe it possible to clone more of these creatures with the proper scientific investment. The capture attempt was a success. The gravity snare has then been deposited into the vivarium, or I should say the species has, and we now have a common Tiyanki. Of course, let's not forget, these space creatures have different levels of rarity, and you clearly want the highest level of rarity. Come on. So we've gone and caught ourselves a common Tiyanki cow. She is cruiser sized, so she takes up 4 of our vivarium capacity, and at the moment is very, very lonely. Space fauna inside the vivarium will grow at an accelerated rate. Life is easy when you're being fed by advanced alien ranchers, and the only worry you have is that cull button down on the bottom right. It looks like if we cull them, we'll get some food, and if we can find a male, we'll be able to force them to mate. Oh, good lord. All right, yes, this is just normal ecology things. Zoos do it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. The devs have also noted here that auto-culling, that bottom on the bottom left, might be the most Stellaris button ever created. Yeah, that sounds very Stellaris. I mean, the next level will possibly be auto-purging, but yeah, let's move on. Important to note here as well, allegedly the Tiyanki need a mating partner as we've seen, but crystals and amoebas reproduce asexually, I mean, who would have guessed, and void worms will be covered in the next video. So this Tiyanki needs another one to breed. We could fly around trying to find them, or we could bring them to us with a new thing called a void lure. Void lures are a star-based building unlocked by completing the Domestication Traditions, and they attract a specific species of space fauna and must be built in their favoured habitat. Space amoebas like nebulas, crystalline entities like pulsars, and the Tiyanki like gas giants. This seems like it would be very, very powerful if we mix it with cordyceptics. We could basically lure lots and lots of Tiyanki in to their doom and then reanimate them. Holy crap, okay. And if you're enjoying this video, please lure that like button to its doom. Every month there is then a chance that any captive fauna that can be bred will automatically do so, which will put them on a cooldown before they can reproduce again, because, people need time off after having kids or something. This will be visible under the reproductive status button. Brilliant, we've reduced the complex life of the galaxy down to a spreadsheet. I love it. If you cull fauna, you get resources, which vary depending on the species. as well as their genetic material. Having a creature's genetic material allows you to grow clones of them at your hatchery. Exceptional creatures marked by their rarity have increased combat stats and increased culling rewards. So culling exceptional creatures is actually really, really good. Cloned fauna will always use the highest rarity available, and you can upgrade existing fleets if you acquire better genetic material. For example, here we've culled a specimen for my dinner. We've fed some pops on our planet with that food, and yeah, we needed them for parts. Sorry, buddy. Generally, you'll clone fauna at the smallest size and they'll grow up over time. Technologies exist that will let you force grow them to start at a later growth stage, however. So if you want bigger and badder space fauna right from the get-go, that is possible. You just have to unlock the technologies to do it. For example, here we can see Wusu 2, a space amoeba common, and the next growth stage there is written as being in 14 months. Tooltips on the ships will let us know how long we have to wait before they upgrade and get to a bigger growth stage. I wonder if reanimated space fauna, and of course I'm talking about the Cordyceptic Civic here, will also continue to grow with time, because if they do, that could be very, very powerful. Also note that this creature has a preferred habitat, and that creatures in their preferred habitat have a 50% reduced upkeep. So, you want to put amoebas in a nebula, you want to put Tianki in a gas giant, and you want to put crystals in a pulsar. Doing that will give you a 50% reduction on upkeep, which for the most part here seems to be food and energy. Since larger space fauna take up more naval capacity, there may be times you want to prevent their growth. You can prevent them from exceeding the command limit of a fleet by changing their growth stance. You can also block them from exceeding your overall naval capacity in policies. So in policies, you've got controlled or excessive growth, as we can see here. And then on the growth stance, we've got space fauna growth stance currently set to excessive, which means everything will grow. Or if you don't want it to grow, which I can't imagine that would be the case, honestly, then you could turn that off. I also find it really funny that the devs have labored the point that these are not bioships, these are basically pets, but we somehow still have an admiral riding alongside these 28 amoebas. In my headcanon, that basically means the admiral has got a little house and strapped it onto the side of one of these amoebas and is using it as his personal admiral's quarters. Or maybe he's actually just got a saddle and he's in a spacesuit with a saddle on riding the damn thing. I don't know, something like that I think would be really funny. Now let's take a look at unnatural selection. The controlled mutations technology lets you make some changes to the fauna you have captured when you are creating your clones. This lets you use a variant of the ship designer to redesign them and make use of special mutation component slots. Space fauna mutations are tied to other technologies but won't clutter the tooltips unless you have controlled mutations. Okay, let's dive in and take a look at this. So it kind of looks like we have a match here between the weapons and defenses you normally research, and then things we can put onto our ships, like the red eye beam here, basically shoving a laser beam in one of the poor amoeba's eyes to zap out and attack an enemy. I can also see here we have a shield because, well, take a look at that shield. It doesn't seem to provide much defense here, only 35, so I'm guessing that these weapons and defenses we can add onto our space fauna are much less powerful versions of the regular things we would add onto our ships. Otherwise though, this looks almost entirely identical to the normal ship designer. I wonder if we can change the base weapons the amoeba has. Right now it's got the normal amoeba weapons, those 3 siphon things, alongside a regrowth, the hull panel regrowth thing. Mutations can be broadly classified as offensive, defensive, or special. But you can use these 3 slots, and I think other ones might have more slots, however you want to customize your fauna. Barring restrictions on the components themselves, like how you can only have 1 cloaking mutation. You can alter their behavior in a similar way to combat computers by installing neurochips. Oh, good lord. So basically, we're going to put chips in their brain and lasers in their eyeballs. How is this not bioships? I'm feeling like this is bioships. The different space fauna have different resource costs and upkeeps, and those upkeep costs are reduced if they're in their preferred habitat like we saw earlier. You can, and probably should, also create designs for what your fauna will grow into if you allow them to. You can change the current growth stage by clicking on the Pick Creature Size button. You know, the laser eyes thing just really reminds me of Dr. Evil and his sharks with laser beams. Frickin' laser beams on their foreheads. That's going to be so funny. Now we're going to look at the new Domestication Tradition and one of the new Civics, Beastmasters. First up, we have Domestication here. This tradition can be taken once you have the artificial breeding technology. It's focused, as you might expect, on improving your space fauna. So unlocking this grants us a nice plus 20% farmer output, which I assume will be pretty useful if we are spending lots and lots of food on not just growing these bio ships, space fauna pets, but also using food for the upkeep on these ships. We get the galactic trawling agenda, which I don't think we get to see yet, and then we get minus 10% space fauna ship cloning cost. Adopting all the domestication traditions grants us plus 50% space fauna ship experience gain and an ascension perk. Let's go left to right, top to bottom then. So containment protocols. That gives us 25% more vivarium max capacity, an increase of fauna capture of 20%, and a greater chance of capturing higher rarity space fauna. Biorepurposing is all about making sure nothing goes to waste. Your defeated space fauna leave behind debris that you can research to recover some of their cost, 10%. You'll also gain 250 food when you clear an organic blocker, and you'll get plus 33% clear blocker speed. That seems okay, but nothing special. Then on the bottom row we've got astrozoology. That increases the chance of breeding for all space fauna in the vivarium, and you get 25% extra resources or rewards when you cull something. Also, you'll get plus 50% increase to resources from zookeepers. Cool. Metabolic regulation unlocks the metabolic regulation policies and gives you plus 5% pop growth speed empire-wide and plus 15% space fauna ship cloning speed, which I think is just like space fauna ship construction speed. Then on the bottom right we have killer instincts. Creatures that survive in deep space must depend on themselves to provide their own protection, or their species will cease to exist. This might be the best part of the entire tree. You'll get 15% space fauna ships damage and plus 15% space fauna ships sublight speed. So getting that increased speed and damage will help all of your space fauna fleets, and if you're predominantly a force with that kind of fleet, like for example if we've gone maybe cordyceptic, that's a really nice bonus to have. The metabolic regulation policy, unlocked with metabolic regulation from the bottom center of that previous tree, allows you to increase fauna growth rate and upkeep, or freeze their growth but reduce upkeep. Reducing upkeep could be very, very good if we pair that with placing space fauna in the correct systems for a combined total, if it's additive, of minus 80% upkeep. A docked station there should reduce that down to the maximum of minus 90%. Minus 90% ship upkeep is nothing to be trifled with here. Wow. I wonder how much ship fauna upkeep reduction we actually get from this though. Now let's look at the brand new Civic. It's called Beastmasters for regular bioempires, but every single authority type will get access to this new Civic. If you want to go all in on space beasties, you can take this great Civic. These Civics dramatically increase the upkeep of artificial ships, but they'll give you everything you need to fully embrace the rancher lifestyle. So you will start the game with gravity snares and artificial breedings. Your star bases will be able to construct beast ports from the get-go, and you'll actually start with one. Your starting corvettes will be replaced by space amoebas, and you'll start with some genetic material for common space amoebas so you can clone some more. Artificial ships have plus 200% naval capacity usage, which is pretty nasty, but if we stick to only bioships, if they're any good at least, then this could be really, really strong. For regular bioempires or individualistic machines, you'll get the Beast Lord position, granting plus 2% space fauna ship sublight speed and 3% damage per level. That's very nice. And if you're a corporate empire, you'll get 2% space fauna ship growth rate and plus 3% culling reward with the Head Rancher. I think the Beast Lord does sound better though. That sublight speed and damage could be really, really good. For Gestalt Empires, you basically just get an increase to your Legion node experience gain, so that's alright. Overall, because this Civic cannot be manually added or removed after the start of the game, I'm not quite sure how powerful it is. Yes, you get instant access to cloning and gravity snares and artificial breeding, but is it maybe better to just wait to get those technologies normally after, I don't know, 20 or 30 years of game time, maybe slightly longer, rather than spending an entire Civic slot on getting them unlocked right at the start of the game? Perhaps if there were some better modifiers for Gestalt Empires, an increase to weapons damage or something for the Bio Ships, Space Fauna ships, it could be very, very good, but at the moment I'm not quite sure I see the point, other than just allowing you to dive straight into that kind of rancher fantasy from the get-go. Beastmasters replace their hatcheries and shipyards with dual-use beast ports. These can clone space fauna like a hatchery, but also have rudimentary shipbuilding capabilities and are able to build civilian vessels. So you won't need to keep a shipyard around just for your colony, construction and science ships. Alright, so the main benefit here then maybe is this beast port, which gives us slight ease of access. We can not have one or two shipyards, I suppose. Overall, I'm not massively impressed by this Civic. Maybe there'll be some balancing done before release and they might add some extra bonuses in though. If you've enjoyed this video on the new stuff we're getting with the Grand Archive DLC, but you want to know more about the new Grand Archive itself, the new Civic, and the new Tradition that are all about collecting those specimens, then you'll want to click the video on screen now.